Esme, you can't blackmail anyone, I said, with a secret they've already said out loud. I said it and then I made myself sit inside what it actually meant, because this is the part where it stopped being clever and started costing. It meant me. Paper Vows, Episode 13, Inpainting, written by Mia. There is a stage in restoration called Inpainting, the part where, after you've cleaned a painting back and stabilized it and faced the honest map of everything it has lost, you finally pick up a brush and begin, very carefully, to fill the gaps, not to deceive. The cardinal rule is that good in painting is always reversible and never pretends the loss didn't happen. You fill the missing places so the eye can read the whole picture again, but you do it so that any restorer who comes after you can tell, in the right light, exactly where the original ended and the repair began. You don't hide the damage. You just stop letting it be the only thing the eye can see. I had never once, in 18 months of marriage and a lifetime of giving until I was empty, inpainted anything with another person. I'd always cleaned alone and filled alone and carried the whole canvas alone. And on the worst night of the worst week, with 2 men circling my family for parts, I learned how to do it with someone holding the other side of the frame. But first, Sorrel's voice was still in the room when I set the phone down, worth considerably more to me together than either of you apart, and I watched the same arithmetic land on Adrian's face that had landed on mine, the cold corporate clarity that is, I am learning, simply his version of the restorer's stare. Paying him doesn't work anymore, he said. Not a question. I had the check half written in my head before you hung up. Clear the debt. Make Sorrel go away. But it doesn't work, because Sorrel isn't selling a debt to Marcus. He's selling a story. And I can buy the debt all day long. I can't buy back a thing once Marcus has it, because Marcus doesn't want money. His jaw set. Marcus wants me gone. The merger dead, the chairmanship his, and now, God. A scandal big enough that a family court might wonder whether a fake marriage in a glass house full of headlines is any place for a 7-year-old. The word court went through me like cold water. He wouldn't. He would. He'll dress it as concern. He's very good at dressing cruelty as concern. You saw him do it in the marble room. Adrian dragged both hands down his face, and for a moment the glass man looked simply exhausted. A person instead of a fortress. So, 2 fronts. Sorrel has your mother's secret and a 30-day fuse. Marcus has the press and now Sorrel, and he's aiming all of it at the merger and at Pip. And the one move I actually know how to make, write the check, manage the problem, make it disappear with money in the dark, is the exact move that loses us everything, because it's the move that keeps the secret a secret, and a secret is the only thing either of them can sell. And here is the thing that changed everything, the small thing, the thing I'll remember when I've forgotten the rest of the war. We didn't go to separate rooms. That's what my family does. That's what his does. That's what every single person in this entire story has done from the first page. Taken the unbearable thing off alone into the dark to carry it where no one they love has to see. My mother did it on a telephone, performing a slow autumn. Adrian did it for 4 years behind a wall safe. I did it for 18 months off my own wages. We are all, every one of us, virtuosos of the solitary load. And instead, that night, we sat down at the kitchen counter where Pip's terrible rabbit portrait was still drying, and we put the whole catastrophe in the light between us, and we fixed it together, out loud, as 2 people who had finally agreed to stop protecting each other to death. I am not going to pretend it was easy or that it was tender at first. It was work. He kept reaching for the checkbook solution and catching himself. I kept reaching for the carry-it-alone solution and catching myself. Twice we snapped at each other, the raw, exhausted snapping of people 4 days into a wound. But somewhere past midnight, with cold tea and a child's poster paints between us, the two halves of us started to fit. He knew things I didn't. How a board reads a scandal, how a merger partner gets spooked, what a family court actually weighs, how Marcus's mind built a play. And I knew the one thing he had spent his whole managed life unable to learn. I knew how to stand in the daylight and not flinch. It was the strangest sensation, being good at something with another person. I have been good at things alone my entire life. It is practically my defining feature, the girl who saves the gallery by herself, restores the painting by herself, carries the debt by herself. I had genuinely never once known what it felt like to set my one thing down beside somebody else's one thing, and watch the two of them lock together into a tool that neither of us owned alone. He'd say a hard, true thing about how power actually moves, and I'd see how to phrase it so a human being could survive hearing it. I'd say a soft, true thing about what frightened people actually need, and he'd see how to make it land in a boardroom. Somewhere past 1 a.m, over a child's poster paints, we made, between the two of us, a single, entirely competent person. I had spent my whole life believing that needing someone was only ever handing them a new way to leave. No one had ever told me it could also be this. 2 half pictures at long last, becoming one whole one. "You can't out-money Marcus," I said, slowly, watching it assemble the way a cleaned painting assembles under the swab, the true image rising up out of the dark. "And you can't out-dark him. He's better in the dark than you are. He's been there longer. So you don't fight him in the dark or the bank. You do the one thing he has no counter for, the thing that beat him in the boardroom and beat the press at the gallery. You take his weapon away by putting it in the light yourself." Adrian went very still. "Esme, you can't blackmail anyone," I said, with a secret they've already said out loud. I said it, and then I made myself sit inside what it actually meant, because this is the part where it stopped being clever and started costing. It meant me, standing up, somewhere public, on purpose, and telling the whole truth about my mother before Sorrel could sell it or Marcus could weaponize it. Not the curated truth, the real one. That Iris Hart, patron of the lonely, kindest woman in the city, the saint of the scuffed parquet, had, in her last desperate dying year, borrowed from a predatory man in the dark and lied to her own daughter about it, and gone into the ground with the lie. That my mother was not a saint. That she was a frightened, proud, generous, flawed, magnificent human being who made a bad choice out of love, exactly like her daughter, exactly like the man her daughter married. That the warm room had a shark's lean on it the whole time, and the warmth was real anyway. I had not understood, until I heard myself say it out loud to him, how heavy she had been to carry. The plaster Iris. The flawless one I had been holding up in front of everyone since the funeral, touching her up whenever a crack threatened to show, exhausting myself maintaining a woman who had never quite existed, because the real one, the one who borrowed from Sorrel and lied down a telephone line, had felt like a betrayal of the eulogy I gave, the one where I called her the kindest person I had ever known. But she was the kindest person I had ever known. Both of those were true at once. That was the whole thing I kept forgetting, the thing my own trade should have taught me years ago. The crack and the kindness are the same painting. You do not get the warm room without the frightened, proud woman who would do anything on earth to keep it open one more winter. I had been trying, for 18 months, to hang only half of her. No wonder my arms had been shaking the entire time. "It costs you her," Adrian said quietly. He understood. Of course he understood. He had spent 4 years paying in the dark precisely, so he would never have to say his own warm secret out loud and watch it tarnish. The version of her you've been protecting. The minute you say it, the saint is gone. Every obituary, every memory, everyone who ever loved that gallery, they'll all know she borrowed from a man like Sorrel. You'd be spending your mother's good name to save my merger and Pip's home. I'm not going to let you trade her for me. You don't get to decide that either, I said, but gently this time because we'd done this dance 4 days ago with the frames reversed, and we both knew the steps now. And it isn't a trade for you. Weren't you listening? It's for Pip. And it's for her, for my actual mother. The real one, not the saint. Because I've spent 18 months guarding a woman who never existed, a flawless plaster iris, and the guarding is the thing that's been eating me, and I am so tired, Adrian. My mother wasn't a saint. She was better than a saint. She was a person who was kind anyway, generous anyway, who borrowed from a monster to keep a warm room open one more winter, and lied to her daughter, so the daughter could keep her faith. And that woman, the cracked human one, can survive daylight. It's only the plaster one that can't. So I'm going to put down the plaster saint and let the real one out, and Sorrel can keep his 30 days, because there'll be nothing left in the dark for him to sell. And Adrian Vale looked at me across a counter covered in a child's paint, and he did the thing I'd asked him to learn and never believed he could. He didn't fix it. He didn't talk me out of it to protect me, or talk me into it to save himself. He picked up my hand, the way I'd picked up his in the hall, an anchor and not a leash, and he said, "Then I'll let the merger go if it goes. I mean it. I've spent my whole life choosing the deal, and I am telling you with my eyes open that I would rather lose every dollar of it than spend one more day being a man you have to protect yourself from. Do it your way. In the daylight. I'll be standing in it with you, and for once in my life, I won't be managing the weather." I don't entirely know which of us moved first. I've gone over it the way I go over a provenance, and I genuinely can't place the join. One moment we were two people over cold tea who had just, for the first time in our whole arranged and cracked and lied about marriage, solved something as equals, and the next his hand was in my hair and mine was fisted in his shirt, and we were kissing like people who had been waiting 18 months and 4 days and a lifetime, kissing like the warm room we kept trying to protect. And it was nothing like the careful staged photograph of our wedding and nothing like the clauses and nothing in any contract anyone had ever drafted. It was just true. The truest thing we'd built. Real paint, going down, at last, over honest ground. And then I pulled back. Because I am a restorer, and I know the difference between filling a loss and pretending there wasn't one, and we were not finished cleaning yet. "That wasn't nothing," I said, shaky, my forehead against his. "I need you to know I know that. It wasn't a clause, and it wasn't performance, and it wasn't gratitude. But it isn't the end of the cleaning either, Adrian. There's still 4 years of dark between us, and a wound 4 days old, and I won't paint over it just because the painting over feels so much better than the crack." I made myself sit back, both of us undone, both of us breathing like we'd run somewhere. We do the rest in the light. All of it. And then when it's clean, when there's nothing left buried on either side, then we find out what we are. Slowly. On purpose. The real kind, which you have to keep choosing. The real kind, which you have to keep choosing, he repeated, like a man learning a phrase in a language he'd given up hoping to speak. All right. Slowly. In the light. A breath. But for the record, that was the first thing in my entire life I didn't earn, manage, or pay for. And it was the best thing that has ever happened to me. I just wanted it said out loud, in the daylight, since that's how we do things now. I laughed, wet and wrecked and absurdly, dangerously happy, in the exact middle of a war. Which is, of course, precisely when the universe collects. It wasn't the doorbell this time. It was an envelope, hand-delivered, slid under the door of the glass house at 1 a.m. by someone who did not want to be seen ringing. The kind of delivery that is itself a message before you've read a word. Adrian got to it first. I watched him read it, and I watched 10 years arrive on his face in 4 seconds, and I knew before he turned it around that the war had just stopped being about money, or mergers, or even my mother. It was a notice from a family court. A petition had been filed that morning before the kiss, before the plan, while we still thought we had 30 days and 2 fronts and time for an emergency review of the guardianship of the minor, Philippa Vale. Filed by Marcus. On the grounds that the child was being raised in a household built on a fraudulent marriage amid a public scandal by a man under investigation by his own trust, and that a loving relative was prepared to offer her a stable home instead. He doesn't even want her, Adrian said, his voice gone to ash. He's never once held her. He just knows she's the only thing on this earth that I would burn the entire world to keep. From the top of the stairs, small and sleepless and clutching a one-eared rabbit, Pip's voice. Why is everybody awake again? To be continued. That was episode 13 of Paper Vows. If Esme and Adrian have your heart, the next episode is already waiting. Subscribe so you don't miss it. The complete book is on Amazon, and early episodes plus bonus scenes are on my Patreon. Links are in the description.
Ay mía.
Thank you for listening.